This is the China-Hollywood Greenlight podcast, episode number 4.
And rolling sound, quiet.
Here we go. Ready?
Speeding. 120, take 7.
And action.
Hello, this is Karen McCann, the host of the China-Hollywood Greenlight podcast, a podcast about creating and distributing content for both Hollywood and China. Any links mentioned in the podcast can be found in the show notes at chinahollywoodgreenlight.com and look for episode number 4. Before I introduce today's special guest, I'd like to start out with a motivational quote for our listeners to encourage them to continue on their path to achieve their own green light. And today's quote is from Babe Ruth, and he said, "Every strike brings me closer to the next home run." And today's guest is Zhao Lewis Liu, who is the founder of the Los Angeles Chinese Film Festival, among many other things. And here is the interview. Today's guest is Zhao Lewis Liu, who earned his MFA in the Film and Video Production program at the University of Iowa. Prior to coming to the United States, Lewis graduated with a BA in Broadcast Journalism at the Communication University of China. He is the founder of the Los Angeles Chinese Film Festival and Chinese in Entertainment, a nonprofit organization supporting Chinese talent and culture in the entertainment industry. He is also a co-founder and director of programming of the DC Chinese Film Festival and served as a program manager for the Asia Society Southern California and helped organize the 7th annual U.S.-China Film Summit. Lewis is currently based in Los Angeles and developing his own feature films and TV series. So, Lewis, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Well, I told the audience a little bit about you, but why don't you tell us more about yourself personally and your business?
Sure. So my name is Louis. I was born in Wuhan, China. Wuhan is known as the Eastern Chicago because it used to be the third biggest city in China. And I came to the U.S. in 2009. I got my MFA in film production at the University of Iowa in the Midwest, which was a very interesting experience. Then I lived in Washington, D.C. for about 4 years. I organized the D.C. Chinese Film Festival while I also made an independent film. And then I moved to Los Angeles about a year ago and started the LA edition of the film festival, which is the LA Chinese Film Festival, and also registered a nonprofit called Chinese in Entertainment to help support the community. So that's pretty much what I do. And in the meantime, I actually also do a lot of China consulting for film productions in the U.S. And currently, I'm actually consulting for a project starring Jackie Chan.
Oh, wow.
And it will probably be shot next year and released in 2019.
Oh, wow. You are definitely going to be you are in big demand now, and you're going to be, wow, this is great to know. Well, let me ask you a question. I know that no 2 days are the same in this business, but can you tell us 2 or 3 main tasks you do on a, quote, typical day?
Sure. Actually, I do a lot of different things. So my days are split very differently. So usually on Mondays, I actually do my consulting work for the Jackie Chan film and the production company. So I would actually read scripts and give notes to screenplay and get ready for conference call between U.S. and China and making sure everything's all set and ready.
Wow.
And then on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I usually do work more on the film festival because it's happening actually in 2 weeks from November 17th to 19th. So that's usually what I do for my Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I woke up with 100 emails in my inbox, trying to reply to all of them, and also we have several teams. Actually, it's a volunteer-run organization. We have about 30 volunteers evenly distributed in 4 different teams. We have a programming team, we have a marketing team, we have a creative productions team, and an operations team. So usually I, touch base with every team leader and see how are things going. And usually, previously, in the early stage of the preparation, everything's been going pretty slow, but now it's really picking up, and I think we're constantly in touch almost every day about what's going on. And a lot of people who are volunteering for the film festival, I actually also have a job in the film and TV industry in LA or in China. So so actually people are all donating their own time, and I usually since I freelance and work part time, I have more time during the day, so I do a lot of outreach to other organizations to see if they are interested to become a community partner, and we can offer them discount codes. That's one thing I do, and then also schedule meetings with people and just in general trying to get the community to know about our festival and come out and support us.
Where is it held exactly?
It's held at the Downtown Independent in downtown LA. It's an independent movie theater.
Oh, okay, great. And we'll link to that in the show notes and plus the website and the dates. I'm just curious, how many films are you going to have at the festival? So
we actually received 416 submissions, but we could only program about actually I think 10 feature films, including a non-competition feature film, and then we program about 20 shorts. So it's a total of around 30 films that we are programming. Okay. Well, that covers Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. What about Thursday, Friday? Thursday, Friday, I still do work here and there. Sometimes I actually get a script, to do coverage for. So usually I either read a script or sometimes I work on my own script because I'm also my background was in creative, so I actually write scripts, and I'm currently developing a TV pilot with a U.S. Writer together for the China market. So that's something I also spend some time working on, usually Thursdays and Fridays. Oh wow! You definitely have you wear many hats. Yes, I do. And you've only been in LA a year. How did you find your business partners? And the second half of that question is, and how do you suggest the listeners find partners, especially Chinese partners? Sure. So this is how I found my partners. When I first came to LA, I started a nonprofit called Chinese Entertainment, and I started to organize a monthly LA China mixer for free. So basically, I'll invite my friends that I know from the industry to come to the mixer, and it's free. We usually go to a different bar every time. So I've been doing that since September 2016, once a month, and it's already been, I think, 13 times, so more than a year. So the mixer started out with just a few people coming that I happened to know from previous connections, and then it started to grow into more and more people. And most recently, we've had about 80 to 100 people coming to the mixer. Oh, really? Mostly people working either, people from China who have had U.S. Film education and work in the industry, or it's Americans who are interested in China or whose work is China related. And also we have a very young crowd. It's mostly people in their 20s and 30s, but we occasionally have people from their 50s and 60s showing up as well. So usually when they show up, the young crowd is very excited to talk to them. So now, is that open to the public, or how do you find out about that? It's open to the public. We have a Facebook page called Chinese Entertainment. If you like the page, you'll get notification every time there's a new mixer event. We also have an email newsletter that you could sign up at ChineseEntertainment.org. So either way, through email. And then for our Chinese listeners, we have a WeChat official account that they can follow. And we have about 600 plus followers on WeChat already, I think. Oh, wow. Okay, so the WeChat, is that... well, maybe we could know later the WeChat address. Sure. If you, I think WeChat is more complicated. You have to add me as a friend, and I can send you the WeChat. Oh, okay. We'll link to the Facebook page and the email. Oh, that's great. So that mixer's still going on. Yes, it's still going on. It's going on every month. Okay, so you found business partners through your outreach program. And obviously, some local Americans can hopefully attend these events and find business partners. But yes. How did you hook up with Jackie Chan's outfit? Oh, that's actually a job that I applied for. I actually just found a job online and I applied. I had maybe 4 rounds of interview, and I was one of the finalists. And then I ended up getting the job. It actually was supposed to be a full-time job, but then it became a part-time because of, I think, financing issues, because the movie hasn't started production. So probably later on, I might be working on the project for more time. But right now, I just spend about a day every week working on it.
Is this some kind of Chinese website that lists film jobs, kind of like Mandy?
It's actually Indeed.com. That's where I found it.
Okay, thank you for that. Indeed.com. This is it's very good information to share. This is very helpful. Okay.
It's actually very rare to find a job on Indeed.com. I didn't even think that I could actually get a call, but I did.
Okay. It helps. You never know. I mean, it's worth looking under every rock, as they say.
Yes, totally.
Okay. Well, let me ask you about a past project. What obstacle did you encounter on a past project, and how did you overcome it, and what did you learn?
So one past project I had was that I made an independent feature, actually sci-fi feature film in New York and Romania. It's called Typhoon City, and one of the biggest challenges is that we run out of money after we shot 1/3 of the film.
Oh boy!
So, and that was, I think that was in 2013. I think 2013 and 2014, we spent actually about a year because most of the people who were working on set for the film were my alumni from film school, and we could only have them available during the summer break. So everybody came to New York in the summer. We were planning to shoot everything in 2 months, but we spent all the money after 1 month. Then we have to send everybody home. We felt, we might not be able to finish this project. So we spent the next 6 months doing fundraising, online.
Okay.
And, I did it in English, in Chinese, crowdfunding, Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and a Chinese Kickstarter. Then eventually I found this one angel investor from Yunnan province in China who just sent me, all the money I needed to finish the film without even signing a contract or anything. It's just a real angel investor who saw like a Weibo post about our film project. And I've actually never met the investor until 2 years later when I went back to China. I visited him. But at the time, I didn't know him at all. We had one phone call. He saw our post and he just gave us the money. So we were able to, regroup everybody in the winter to finish the production. But then it was also challenging because everybody has to wear summer clothes. I mean, to shoot in the winter, over winter break in New York and Romania, and it was pretty cold. So that was one project that was very, very challenging, but, fun. And it's kind of interesting how we were able to finish it because of an angel Chinese investor who live in Yunnan. You would not have thought about, that's where we would find the money.
So you overcame that in a very unusual and lucky way, finding this investor. But tell me, what did you learn from that?
So what I learned from that is that, I feel people are always saying that they're not ready to do whatever project they wanted to do or try something, harder than they could. I think that's always going to be the case. So I felt for us is that I'm glad that we started, even though we didn't have enough money to make the movie or we were too optimistic, but we still decided to, just to go ahead and do it. And then in the process, we learned and, we also solve problems as we go. And I think I've learned so much in that experience, including, we were forced to be able to really good marketing on social media to get us more funding. Otherwise we would not have thought about that. We just wanted to make a movie in the first place, but we learned everything about making the movie in the process.
2 points on that. One is that's another like side job for you. You're now an expert on social media, Chinese social media. I mean, that is possibly a way to attract Chinese investors. But speaking of Chinese investors, you mentioned the Chinese Kickstarter. Is that literally Kickstarter, or is there another name for that website?
I think there was another name for the website. I don't even know if the website still exists today. It was a startup at the time. It just happened to, because, a lot of US websites, Chinese people have a hard time opening them because of the internet censorship. So there's a Chinese website who does the same job. So we just picked one of them and did it. And then that's how we got our video, uploaded to a crowdfunding platform, and people got to see it. So, so not the Kickstarter of the US. Okay. It's just a different website that has a similar function. And
did you have to have just one last question on this? Did you have to have a bank account in China to get the money?
Yes, I did have a bank account in China to get the money. Actually, it might be my parents' bank account. I don't even remember. Parents asked me, "Are you sure this is not a scam?" I'm like, "Well, there's no money in the bank account. Why do you need to worry?" So they gave the investor the bank account, but then the first time they gave the bank account and the routing number and everything, there was a wrong information. The investor actually went to the bank and couldn't send me the money, and then we have to do it again, and then we actually got the money. So it was just very surprising. Everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I will put a link in the show notes. I actually did a blog on Chinese crowdfunding websites, so I'll put that in the blog in the show notes. But that, wow, you definitely had a good learning experience on that one, and you found that investor. So that leads me to my next question about pain points. If you could magically solve 2 pain points, what would they be?
Sorry, you mean pain point?
What I mean is, like, if you could solve 2 problems that you're facing right now, what would they be?
2 problems I'm facing right now. So right now, I'm working on the LA Chinese Film Festival, and one thing I really wanted to solve is to get the non-Chinese communities, like the local American filmmakers community, to get to know more about our festival and come out and see it. Because, our goal is not to create a Chinese film festival for Chinese people who probably already know about the Chinese cinema. We want those films to be seen by a broader audience and a more diverse audience. So we're trying to do that. We're also, figuring out how to do it. I guess that's one thing that's really on my mind, trying to do. And the other thing is probably fundraising for, a nonprofit film festival, because, most film festivals struggle in the world. And I think 90% film festivals will not survive after their first year. So it's really hard to run a film festival. And for us, the first year, everybody was volunteering their time, but I can't imagine people volunteering their time the same way they do this year for the rest of their lives. Eventually we turn the film festival and grow it into a nonprofit that can be self-sufficient, sustainable. So I guess funding and, getting more people to know about us is always the challenge. Also, we have a very limited budget, so we can't, just buy advertising everywhere,
How old is this festival?
So the LA Festival is actually its first year. It's the inaugural festival, but the DC Festival I was involved with has already been around for 5 years.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Okay. No, so you wear many hats. You've got the festival. You're a director. You're a writer. What sort of projects? What sort of future projects are you looking for? Like film or TV, the genre, the budget range, and what do you think the Chinese studios are looking for?
So what I am looking for might be a little different from what the Chinese studios are looking for. So for me personally, I like films that are that tells a compelling story, but also emotionally touching, or even change, the audience's perspectives on certain things. So films that have some depth and, usually a little bit avant-garde-ish, not entirely a commercial film. That's the kind of films that I like to make and create. I like making things that are a little, I guess, unconventional or out of the box. So those are the things I like to do. And I think I wanted to start with low budget because, I feel more comfortable starting at a lower budget, work on my craft and skills, and then gradually move up to a bigger budget. And actually, currently, I'm working on a TV pilot, and I think we probably will adapt that for the Chinese streaming services. The like iQIYI, Youku Tudou, or Tencent, which are the Chinese equivalents of the Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon. So those are the things I'm trying to work on right now. But once I have more experience, and I probably will also make more feature films again. And then for the Chinese studios, I think there are 2 kinds of films that they are very interested in making, or two kinds of projects. One is, international tentpole films that can do really well, across all territories, all countries, like, typical Hollywood studio films is one kind of films that are interested, or a smaller budget Hollywood films that still have a very broad international audience. And then the other kind of project that are really interested in are just domestic Chinese language films that can do well, because lately the Chinese market has been growing very fast, and we know several Chinese movies have been doing really, really good in the box office, even though, if you watch the film, the production quality is not that great. It's good, but not that great, but they still made a lot of profits. So I think those are also what they're looking for. So either domestic Chinese language films or international, tentpole big blockbuster films.
But you also mentioned, I thought there were three. There was the international, the tentpole, the studio films, and then the third one was the domestic Chinese films. But the second one, was that U.S. Independent, U.S. Chinese independent movies, like a small, not a tentpole, but smaller budget film like that?
Yes, totally. Yeah. I kind of categorize that with the Hollywood films because they're both, I guess, English language, films that can do well around the world. I guess actually a lot of Chinese studios are having a hard time to actually get involved at the top Hollywood projects, made by the studios. So actually what I've seen is that a lot of indie films, in Hollywood are actually financed by Chinese investors. So that's what's actually happening. Rather than, even though there are some Chinese companies that are more involved with bigger budget films, but a lot of them are financing like a mid-budget Hollywood films.
And how do you suggest those American producer writers or producers connect with those Chinese financiers?
So connecting with Chinese financiers, I think usually, I guess people or like myself or a lot of Chinese film professionals who have worked in Hollywood would be a great point of, to start with. I think there is a huge cultural barrier between first China and the US, and secondly, a lot of film financiers recently that have been financing films might not come from a film background. A lot of them from energy or real estate. So a lot of them actually don't even know much about filmmaking or coming from a finance background. So I think having a film person who has somebody who can either who understands both the Chinese culture, the language, as well as the film industry would be really helpful to make that connection for China and the U.S.
Okay, well, that your mixers are the perfect launching pad.
I would say so. Yeah, there's a lot of actually. What's interesting is that a lot of Chinese filmmakers are also having a hard time to find jobs or to get employed in the U.S. if they don't have sponsorship, because of the visa issues and the tightening immigration policies in the U.S. So I felt very lucky. I had a green card when I worked in D.C. So when I moved here, I was able to be employed and, work on different kinds of projects. But other people might not be as privileged as I am if they don't have the same, immigration status. Right. But in the meantime, I also feel that in Hollywood overall, there's not enough recognition for the Chinese talent in LA. They feel very marginalized, and even though a lot of U.S. companies they really want to get Chinese financiers, they might not know enough. They just think, they think they can do it on their own, or So I think maybe that's somewhere where the disconnection happens. And I think, people with both film and China experience can be actually very, very, very valuable for U.S. companies or producers in their search for Chinese partners or financiers.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And I definitely will be at your next mixer. So thank you for that information. Now tell me, what skills or talents are essential to being effective at your job?
So for me, I think I actually do a lot of different things. So I guess for my China consulting work, it's more about my role is more like a creative executive. So I read scripts and think about if this is a good project for the market or if this is the right project for the company. So in that aspect, I guess having the ability to understand screenplays, story structures, and both cultures would be really important. And then for my film festival work is more about management and organizing, a big event with a lot of people. I guess for that, I think project management experience is more important, and attention to details and also interpersonal communication skills are also very important because I've constantly switching between Chinese and English and talking to all kinds of different people all the time. And so I guess that's a big part of it. And then for my own project, I think I'm developed my own series and feature films. I think writing and is definitely important, and also being able to be consistent or persistent at what I do and keep improving myself is the key, because that's how people get better. You by doing it over and over again and get better every time. So that's what I think.
Wow, that's exactly that. I totally agree with that. Now, this next question is a kind of a trick question. What question did I not ask you that I should have?
Maybe why I wanted to start a nonprofit and spend so much time working on the film festival that doesn't actually make any profit.
Do you want to give us a quick answer?
Well, yeah, actually, I think I might have briefly mentioned it.
The reach, expanding the reach to a Western audience.
Yeah, that's one thing, but also there is a personal reason. I felt when I first moved to LA or started working in the industry, I realized that even though the US or Hollywood has a lot of interest in Chinese markets and the financiers, the funding, there's almost zero or very, very little interest in Chinese talent. So that's the biggest thing in my mind. I was wondering, if you are developing a film for the China market, why it's all WGA American writers who have never been to China who are writing about the Great Wall instead of hiring Chinese talent who can do the same job,
exactly,
if not better, but definitely cheaper, right? So and oftentimes I read screenplays written about China in very stereotypical ways.
Right.
Some of them even racist in certain ways. And I was wondering how come these people are writing a story about China, in a very Orientalist way and still be able to get away with it and being made and produced. And then, it's just fascinating to see these things. And so that's why I thought, I think we need a platform to really show to a Hollywood or American audience that China has the talent to create, films or, TV series that can do well in the Chinese market, So
I really see your point. And I could just make a guess is that the American scripts that you're reading, very possibly these American writers have maybe never maybe they've never even been to China, and obviously never, or probably not even lived in China, but maybe not even visited. That's a big problem right there. And then the second problem I could see that is a bit of a challenge is the American production companies or American studios. They all use the agencies. They can't open their doors and just say we'll take every script. So there's a bit of a gatekeeper. But yes, you need a bridge between the East and West, and you need some kind of, and like your mixers, I'm back to your mixers. I mean, that's a perfect launch pad to meet for, Chinese and Americans to meet. And so this is really a key, your mixers, to kind of breaking down that problem with the scripts aren't exactly authentic, and possibly opening up the door to Chinese talent in the American studio system. So, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that question. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the last question is: what advice can you give those aspiring to tap into the Chinese market? And you've given us, you've got the mixer, and you have to get out there and network and be persistent. But just to round it off, what would you suggest for those aspiring to tap into the Chinese market?
I think if you really want to tap into the Chinese market, maybe start learning, one Chinese word a day, just to, get to know a little bit more about the language, the culture. And then maybe the second step is coming to, our film festival, our mixers, to get to meet more Chinese filmmakers who are also working in the industry, So starting that dialogue, or just, being around people with a very different cultural perspective will be very, very helpful as the first step, if not going to China. And then the next step is probably going to more China events, or even going to China to really meet the people, and talk about the business.
Excellent advice. Well, Lewis, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And you've given us some great advice, some great tips, and we're really very excited to hear about your mixer. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me as well.
Now, in conclusion, is there any projects you'd like to plug, any social media handles or website links?
Yes, actually, our film festival, the hashtag is LACFF, and then you can find our website at lacff.org, or you can just look up Los Angeles Chinese Film Festival and should be able to find us on different various social media platforms.
Okay, and then I'll also link to those Facebook pages that you mentioned earlier.
Sure.
For the Mixer Group. Okay, Lewis, well, thank you again for coming on the show today.
All right, thank you so much. And please send me a link when it's done, and I would love to share it on our social media as well.
Oh, you bet. And we'll see you at the premiere.
Yep.
Before I mention my key points and takeaways, Lewis is offering a special discount for the film festival this weekend. Now, the Los Angeles Chinese Film Festival is this weekend, November 17th through 19th, and he has 2 festival discounts. The first one is a festival pass discount. If you're looking for red carpet VIP treatment and dinner, you can get 10% off the festival passes with the code CIE Pass 2017, and of course CIE stands for Chinese in Entertainment, so CIE Pass 2017. And then there's also a special ticket discount. If you want to just see one show or 2, you can get $2 off every ticket with the code CIE 2017. Again, CIE 2017, and that will be in the show notes. And now for my takeaways. I've got 3 takeaways from my conversation with Zhao Lewis Liu. But first, a big shout out to Melanie Ainsley, who runs the China-Hollywood Society, as well as Peking Pictures. She's another guest who you'll hear from soon on my podcast. She referred me to Zhao Lewis Liu, and I'm very glad I heard about his mixers. So along with the China-Hollywood Society and Lewis's mixers, I hope to network with other like-minded folks. And if you'd like to suggest someone to be on the podcast, shoot me an email at podcast@China-Hollywood Greenlight.com. Now, I've got 3 key points regarding my interview with Lewis. Number 1 is just do it. As Lewis told us in the interview, he tried to shoot a feature film. He ran out of money, but he had to get good at marketing and social media, which ultimately allowed him to find an angel investor. Now, that was very lucky. But the point is, he got out of his comfort zone and he got his feature film off the ground, despite maybe being a little optimistic about the budget. Now, I'm not saying mortgage your house to make your film, but I am saying we need to push past preconceived boundaries. Maybe it's just making a phone call or going to a mixer where you don't know anyone. You have to start somewhere. And like this podcast I started, I'm now making connections and learning a ton. So just do it. And the second thing is Chinese talent is looking to collaborate. Lewis said he started this not-for-profit film festival not only for Chinese films and talent to reach a broad audience, but also because some U.S. producers are overlooking great Chinese talent right under their nose. There are Chinese writers and producers here in L.A. and most major film capitals who are looking to cross over. But they're facing a huge obstacle that Americans don't, and that's immigration. So they are motivated to work with you. This is a big opportunity for American producers to make that Chinese connection by attending the LA Chinese Film Festival and these Chinese in Entertainment mixers. And you can find their Facebook address in the show notes. The third thing is, opportunity isn't where you'd expect it. Lewis said he found his job on that Jackie Chan film through Indie.com. Now, he admitted that you almost never find a job there, but he tried it anyway, and he hit the jackpot. So there's no sure bets. Sometimes you just have to try everything before you succeed. Now, as far as my takeaways, I've got one, and that continues on this theme of opportunity. Opportunity is everywhere. You may not think that Chinese domestic films could be an opportunity for Americans, but like Lewis, who found a job in an unexpected place, you need to look under every rock. Now, Lewis mentioned that some Chinese domestic films don't have the best production values, but still make money in China. Even if some Chinese writers or producers are only focusing on the Chinese domestic market, that still could be an opportunity for you. For example, the Russo brothers consulted on Wolf Warrior 2. They used their own stunt team to elevate the action, and they assisted on a creative level, which helped propel that film to become a box office superstar. Now, maybe you're a writer, a producer, agent, manager, film or TV exec. There are opportunities for you in the Chinese domestic market. And perhaps you can consult Chinese writers or producers on the creative aspects of their film. Now, I'm going to link in the show notes some articles from my blog, the China-Hollywood Greenlight, that relate to finding Chinese partners in screenwriting, as well as crowdfunding, such as crowdfunding in China, how Chinese films can attract an American audience, how to find a Chinese partner, how to bulletproof your script for China, and several other articles. But to reiterate Lewis's thoughts, the Chinese talent here and in China are looking to connect with Americans. This is your opportunity. And if you can find these Chinese writers and producers at the LA Chinese Film Festival and Chinese in Entertainment Mixers, that will start you on your way. Now, as far as for the episodic side of this podcast, I'll tell you about my week and my journey to getting my own green light for my film and TV projects. Number one, I went to the AFM, the American Film Market, and I had some very good meetings. One kind of stands out, kind of funny, kind of in a funny way. I was introducing myself, but however, the executive was really busy, didn't have time to talk. So I started a conversation with the receptionist. It turns out she's a young intern, a young Chinese girl, and we had a nice little chat. And she told me that her family owns a production company in China. So we definitely exchanged WeChats. So you never know. The second thing is that someone approached me and asked if I'd change my China-German co-pro to a China-Canadian co-pro. And I'm like, yeah, why not? I'll consider that. So I was joking about that to someone in another meeting, an American company, and it turns out the executive is Canadian and has connections to a production company in Canada. So I don't know, maybe there's some writing on the wall that I should focus on a China-Canadian co-pro. The third thing is that I did hear from the manager of that director I mentioned a few weeks ago, that director that has connections to a Chinese film fund. So fingers crossed they're reading the script. And lastly, I discovered a new networking group, Chinese in Entertainment, and we'll definitely get involved. So I got a lot of writing to do, so gotta run. But I want to say thank you. Thank you again for listening. And to show your support, please go to iTunes, subscribe, and leave a rating so other people can find this podcast. The more we work together, the more opportunities will be out there for everyone. And I'll see you at the premiere. Bye. 一会儿见。